Here are a couple of interesting questions. Well, I have to warn you that the answers are pretty long. Here's the first one. What is the speed of light? That's your answer. It's 300 million meters per second. There are 8 zeros. That's really fast. Now if you think this answer is huge, let me ask you the second question. What do you think is the mass of the sun? You may have to wait really long for this. And I'm sorry, I don't think I even know how this number is pronounced. It took me 8 seconds to write the answer, and as you can see, there are 27 zeros here. It's obvious that such huge numbers are not only difficult to read out, but are also not written easily. So there has to be a simpler notation for such huge numbers. Consider a small number first, say 5,000. Let's look at a different way to write it. We can also write it down as 5 multiplied by 1,000. In this step, we just separated the zeros from the number. Now we should try to write this number in the exponential form. 1000 can be written as 10 multiplied by 10 multiplied by 10. This equals 10 raised to 3. So we can write 5,000 as 5 multiplied by 10 raised to 3. This is just a different way to write 5,000. Some of you might think that 5,000 looks far better than 5 multiplied by 10 raised to 3. In this case, yes, there was no need to write 5,000 this way. In the next example, you will understand the real need for such notation. But before we move on to the next example, let's review what we just did. First, we split the zeros and wrote 5,000 as 5 multiplied by 1,000. Look at the exponent 3 here. It actually depends on the number of zeros in the number. So what we did next was count the number of zeros. And we got the answer as 3 zeros. And in the last step, we write it down in exponential form. 5 multiplied by 10 raised to 3. Now let's consider the speed of light without the units, 300 million. The first step asks us to split the zeros. So we write it down as 3 multiplied by 100 million. Then we count the number of zeros. There are 8 zeros in 100 million. And then we write it in an exponential form as 3 multiplied by 10 raised to 8. So the speed of light can be written as 3 multiplied by 10 raised to 8 meters per second. We can see it is much simpler to write it in terms of powers of 10. We don't have to write large numbers. It's easier to read the number out, and the chances of making a mistake are also lower. Remember, split, count, and exponential form. There is just one more thing we need to keep in mind when we solve such examples. Consider the number you can see on the whiteboard. It's actually 2.33 billion. Let's try and write this number in terms of powers of 10. We follow the same steps we followed in the previous example. We split the zeros, count them, and write it in exponential form. Separating the zeros, the number can be written as 233 multiplied by 10 million. And since there are 7 zeros in 10 million, we can write the number down as 233 multiplied by 10 raised to 7. This answer is correct, but this is not the best way to write the final expression. There is a small point we need to remember here. The number which is multiplied to the powers of 10, in this case 233, should have just one digit before the decimal point. Where's the decimal point here? 233 can also be written as 233.0. So it has 3 digits before the decimal point. To get just one digit before the decimal point, here is the trick. We can write 233 as 2.33 multiplied by 100 and 10 raised to 7 as is. So the number would equal 2.33 multiplied by 10 raised to 2 multiplied by 10 raised to 7. We can remove the brackets and write it as 2.33 multiplied by 10 raised to 2 multiplied by 10 raised to 7. Look at these two terms now. 10 raised to 2 multiplied by 10 raised to 7. The base of both the numbers is the same. It's 10. Hence, we can use the product law and write it as 10 raised to 2 plus 7. We add the exponents over the base. That equals 10 raised to 9. Hence, this big number can be written as 2.33 multiplied by 10 raised to 9. So the basic steps are very simple. We split the zeros, we count the number of zeros and write it in exponential form. And we make sure that this number here, which comes before the powers of 10, has just one digit before the decimal point.